I don't know if this is still a thing, but there was a craze maybe like a year ago about manifesting things into your life. The theory of this essentially goes focus on your goals thing, and the universe will give you help towards that thing. Ferrari's keys will drop into your lap, kind of thing. Now, hear me out. But this is how concept based gods could be created in a fantasy world. See, it goes like this. If enough people venerate a concept, that concept becomes a divinity. And what, I ask you, is manifesting if it is not veneration of a core concept like wealth or success or health? And that's what I want to talk about today. Gods born from concepts through the veneration of people, and how that would affect your fantasy world's religions. Welcome to another episode of Just in Time Worldbuilding with your host, Marie Mullaney. So this video originates from a viewer who asked for me to opine, to give my thoughts, to communicate on the topic of a world where gods or spirits or entities are born from sentient concepts. In other words, a god must first be a concept. Then that concept is venerated. And the viewer wanted to know, what would organized religion even look like in a setting where this is true? Well, I thought that was pretty interesting, especially because there is some fascinating metaphysical thoughts you can play with in this concept, if you'll forgive the pun there. First, there is the thought of a concept being sentient. And then there's the thought of a concept being worshipped enough that it becomes a god. I'm going to assume that the question wasn't about sentient concepts living independently of humans in their own metaphysical reality. I'll address that version during the members credit scroll, so stay tuned till the end of the video if that's the scenario you're interested in. Before we dive into how concepts could become sentient, let me just caveat here and say that I'm not talking about what we see so often in our world, where gods had concepts. Sure, Zeus is the god of the sky, but Zeus is also the god of lightning, the father, and a number of other concepts or domains. Zeus had concepts. He wasn't a concept or born from a concept. It's very close and it's a subtle distinction, but it is not quite the same thing. And of course, we are talking about fantasy here, so I assume literal gods who are prone to interfering in mortal lives are what we're actually talking about. Okay, so enough of the caveats. How would a concept becoming a sentient, and how would it then become a god? The more I thought about this question, the more I thought about memes, which eventually led me to manifesting, but that's a separate discussion. Now, I'm going to take this back to the original definition of a meme as defined by Richard Dawkins in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene. Yes, the meme concept is in fact that old. Dawkins defined a meme as a unit of cultural transmission. Just as a gene is a package of biological information that replicates from body to body via DNA, a meme is a package of cultural information that replicates from brain to brain via imitation. And Dawkins said that a successful meme needs three things. Firstly, longevity. The idea must be sticky enough to stay in a person's mind for a long time. 2, fecundity. The idea must be able to spread rapidly or have a high copying rate. And 3, copy fidelity. The core of the idea must remain recognizable as it moves from person to person. I think you can see how even our memes today, our viral internet pictures and texts and concepts, relate back to these three attributes. So I think that must be the basis for our concept. Instead of saying a God is born from a concept, let's say that a God is born from a meme in the original definition. And concepts, of course, give rise to memes. So the life cycle would be 1. Some person has a unique-ish thought. That is a concept. They share this and the thought gains traction, leading to the second phase, replication, where the concept becomes a meme. And in this world, when enough meme energy is invested into that meme, it becomes sentient, an entity that can act, albeit in a limited way, not yet a god. So how does a meme become a god? Well, let's take a few examples. Let's say your concept is gambling, specifically the gambler's itch of the next one will be that lucky strike. Now, let's say that a traveler tells a bard a story of how he found a gold coin by carrying a river stone from one river to another and skipping that stone over a river 7 times, just when he needed it most. And the stone landed on a gold flake just when the traveler needed it most. The bard is desperate for ideas and makes a song about this stone-carrying business. The story spreads and people start carrying lucky stones and skipping them over rivers. The meme of carrying a lucky stone around is born. The meme now starts occasionally granting people's wishes, making itself more real. So gold or other items are actually found by skipping a stone that has been carried in your pocket over a river. And the more people that venerate, or you might say manifest this outcome with a stone, this gives the meme more and more legs until it reaches the point where it becomes Oreos, the golden fluke, or the god of luck. Or how about the concept is that that feeling of safety when you are in your own home? A community starts sharing the idea that an ever-burning hearth fire keeps the dangers away. The idea becomes a meme. As people focus their gratitude and attention on the fire during the long winters, they manifest the idea that fire in the hearth brings safety. And this gives rise to a Hestia-type goddess who looks after people's homes as long as the hearth fire is burning. By the way, YouTube does these quizzes now as part of the video, so here is one for you. Is fecundity an image or humor required for a meme to be successful? Okay, so that's how I'd make the metaphysics of this world work. But metaphysics alone is not enough. Before I tell you about how I think religion would work in a world like this, give me one moment to tell you about Sangwheel Chronicles, which is my epic fantasy series where I have my own gods, though they're not meme-based. This is Louis' story, and he is an assassin that one reviewer described as a medieval James Bond. This epic fantasy is a tale of fate, saving the empire, protecting a dire secret, and discovering your own red lines. The series is complete at 4 books and is available on my website as an ebook box set with 8 pieces of human-drawn character art included as high-resolution digital copies. Or you can get the physical copies via Amazon or any other online bookshop. On a side note, I won Flash 500's novel opening competition, so at least you know I can write reasonably well. Links to all that down below. If you want to buy the ebook box set, I'll give you a discount. The first 15 people get a 30% discount with the code GODS2026 if you buy from my website. That code again, GODS2026. Okay, enough of that. Let's get back to religions and memes. So, how would an organized religion work in a world of this concept to meme to God's pipeline? Given that gods born from concepts would have pretty potent power, I think we can count on people wanting to control that power, and that means, say it with me now, controlling ideas. That's right, $50 to you for playing along at home. I think that there would be mainstream priesthoods dedicated to not only ensuring veneration of their gods and their concept of their god through ritual, prayers, and meditative practices, but they would also spend a great deal of time grooming other younger memes into their own fully manifested god. I think they would corral memes into their god. See, ideas change over time, concepts change, memes die, and new ones are born. But if you have an actual powerful divinity, well, then you need to keep updating the divinity to retain your power. So I think the most successful priesthoods would not try to suppress new ideas, not fully. I think they would try to incorporate these new memes and concepts into their gods. So let's take an example. In this world of Aureus the Golden Fluke, perhaps people start using paper credit or digital ledgers instead of gold coins. The original river stone ritual feels outdated to city dwellers. The priests of Aureus realize they need to update the firmware of their god, and they start a campaign. The stone isn't the power, the flow is. The new meme that they create through this is provided through incorporating the concept of investment. They tell stories of how investing a small amount of effort manifests a great return. And suddenly Aureus isn't just for gamblers, he's the god of the merchant class, and he has a new lease on life, but he changes subtly. He transitions from a whimsical spirit of the river into a massive golden-robed deity of prosperity. Or let's look at our Hestia-type goddess. She is powerful but geographically diluted because she lives in every home. A central church would want to monopolize that safety. Let's say there's a theocratic priesthood that wants control. They groom a younger meme, the eternal flame of the state. They build a massive central cathedral with a fire that never goes out, and claim that all homes are held safe by the safety that radiates from the master hearth that they provide in the cathedral. They build barracks and apartments and cheap accommodation that don't have hearths, and claim that the master hearth protects all these homes. Essentially, they link the concept of home safety to the borders of the land controlled by the church. And as a result, they take a private individual manifestation and turn it into a collective mainstream divinity that the theocratic state can tax and control. I also think that there would be battles between sects to make their memes become gods, or even reforms where the concept of a god is steered in one direction or another by different priesthoods. I can see secret cults who are trying desperately to groom a meme into being a god of their own before any of the mainstream gods figure out what's going on and try to incorporate the meme into one of the existing gods. If worship and veneration makes gods stronger, I can also see gods being weakened by the drop-off of worshippers. Actually, a great example of this is in the Tyrant Philosopher series by one of my favorite authors, Adrian Tchaikovsky. Gods in that series are local entities born from social contracts, collective belief, and theological geography. One of the main characters, Yasnik, carries around a literal box of small gods. These are deities whose memes have almost died out, And because they lack a large following, they lack fecundity, and because they lack consistent rituals, longevity, they've shrunk into tiny, petulant versions of themselves. And I won't spoil anything here about the series, but there are people who are capable of harnessing these ideas in a different way that is not very good for the survival of the ideas in question. So if you're looking for a book that implements this kind of system, this gods as a concept system, check out the Tyrant Philosophers series. And here's another quiz for you, but this one doesn't have a right or wrong answer. I'm just curious about what you think. Do you think secret cults would work in this kind of world? Pick the answer you think is most correct. And now, while the awesome members of the channel scroll by, let's talk about what would happen if the concepts were sentient and became gods through worship. In other words, they don't have to go through the whole memification process. They exist as powerful entities in their own right, and worship makes them more powerful. I think in such a case, you'd end up with these entities fighting each other to reach the top. You'd probably have a few entities band together into pantheons to take out the others and claim all the worship for themselves. Trudy Canavan had a good example of this with her Age of the Five. It wasn't concepts that became gods, but people who rose to become gods. But once people had ascended to godhood, there absolutely was a god's war for exactly that reason. To claim the worship of people for themselves. In a world where the nascent gods are concepts, I think it would be interesting what happened to those concepts if they were destroyed or sabotaged. Do you think that the concept would vanish completely? Like, let's say honor was a concept and it had been killed, and now the world has no more honor until the concept is somehow reborn? Or do you think it would be a case of magic based on honor cannot be used until the concept of honor is reborn? It's an interesting thought experiment to play with what would happen to those destroyed concepts. The last random thought I had on the topic was, what about negative memes? If enough people fear a specific creepypasta or a rumor of a monster in the woods, does the meme god system accidentally create a demon? That, I think, would also be a really cool twist, is how do you handle negative memes? And those are my thoughts on concepts as gods. If you enjoyed this deep dive into concepts and memes and religion and so on, make sure you hit all the good buttons, subscribe and hype and thumbs up and so on. If you made it all the way here, leave me a heart in the comments. If you want more content from me, check out my video on creating a religion based on philosophy, and I will see you soon for another one.